Got him! Got him!
You just got wrecked.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. So today is Thursday. Hope you've had an awesome week so far, one day closer to the weekend. Having a look at what is going on, Bitcoin is down 3%. But in all sincerity, how much time have we spent in this area, right? Because we keep going up and down and up and down, but ever since August 5th, we've basically been consolidating in this zone, that sort of $11,700 level that we've talked about time and time again, right? We put in these two little mini Bart Simpsons here. We went up to about 12,350. Another time we hit 12,120. We even dipped down to 11,230, but we still find ourselves in this same region. So I want to talk about this moving forward because we still have these goals of $17,000 maybe by the end of August. Is that going to be possible? Well, I'll tell you what. The longer we continue to put in this sideways movement and have this consolidation, the more chance we're going to have a massive breakout or breakdown. I want to talk about three key levels that we're looking at right now where Bitcoin could move to, and one in particular that if we actually manage to smash through this resistance, there is a very, very good chance that Bitcoin will never come down to these lows ever again. We're going to talk about that today, and if that sounds good to you, well, you know what to do. Also, if it's your first time checking out the Crypto Zombie channel and you are not subscribed yet, you're definitely going to want to hit that subscribe button because we literally talk about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin every single day, even on the weekends, even when I'm on vacation. You know I love you guys.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So Bitcoin dominance is now sitting at 68.8%. We've actually pulled back 0.1%, which is interesting. But you notice here that Binance coin is up while everything else is down. Now, the reason that Binance is up right now is for two reasons. One is because they just announced staking on Crypto.com wallet. And the second is obviously people are trying to get these lottery tickets for the Perlin IEO. But for the most part, a lot of other altcoins are down today. Now, if we switch them to the Bitcoin comparative, are there any that are up? There's a few. There's a few. Tron's up a little bit. Cardano a little bit. Leo a little bit. Okay, but not really too many gains across the board. Actually, having a look at the biggest gainers of the day, switching it back to the US dollar comparative, we have First Coin up with $539,000 worth of volume. So I would not touch that one, but you do what you want. V Systems next, Binance, Odom, IOST, Educare, Rift Token, Aurora, and Wax all doing quite well today. We spoke about why Binance is pumping. Having a look at this, we have a little bit of a mixed sort of feeling in the market right now. You know, we got neutral over here, neutral, mild sell, neutral, okay, now they're switching to buy. So it looks like the markets are a little confused right now. You are noticing that the shorts are overtaking the longs currently. So as far as futures are concerned, it seems like they're bearish, while on the spot markets, we seem to be a little bit more bullish. One thing I want to point out is the fear and greed index is now up to 61, okay? Whereas last month we were more in the fear zone of around 33. So you can see the higher we get, specifically when we got to the 95, well, that was when we hit the $14,000 level and had that subsequent pullback, right? So definitely keep your eyes on this. I know some people hate this indicator, but I got to be honest with you, it tends to play out, especially when we start putting in those really greedy numbers, right? So having a look at what's going on right here, we do notice that we dipped into the EMA ribbon on the 4-hour this morning, but we instantly pulled back. So this is good. Currently, it is providing support. You can see we're well above all of these different moving averages that we talk about on the channel usually. So on the lower time frames, it's still not looking that bad. It's looking all right now, right? See right here, we're sort of trapped between this support turned resistance and then this level right here around that $11,700 level. Very tough area that we're in, and we're sort of consolidating. Bitcoin is having difficulty figuring out whether it wants to break down to some of these lower lows around the $10,000 level, or if it wants to skyrocket above 14K, right? You can see we've been held down here. We are We have been supported by the original resistance of the downwards trend, though, the one that held us down here and here. So currently staying above that is actually a pretty positive thing. And if we were to come down and crawl down lower, you could see Bitcoin come down to maybe, that $11,000, $10,900 level, right? But what we were talking about yesterday was this Adam and Eve pattern, right? And how we were putting in a handle. Now you can see over here, you can check out yesterday's video if you want. I'll drop the link above. But if you want me to just show you real quick, basically, we had this Adam, right? And then we had this Eve. And now we're putting in a bit of a consolidation sideways, which is like the handle, right? So you can see right here, that's the handle. And they say that when price breaks out of this region, it often moves up in a strong trend. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but what I am saying is if we continue to put in this sideways pattern, it is a possibility. But I do want to talk about the key levels because regardless of whatever pattern we're putting in, support, right? Resistance, these are very, very important. In fact, when you think about it, what are the bots trading on, right? Most of these bots out there are not trading on exponential moving averages or patterns or cup and handles or Adam and Eves. No, they're trading on support resistance, right? So currently you'll notice that we wicked down to about this $11,625 level, $11,700 roughly, right? But we have been inside of this blue zone. Now, in order for this to be a bullish move, we need to get above 12,207. If we fall out of this zone, we sort of go into this no man's land, and the red zone represents sort of bearish movement, okay? That would be Bitcoin closing below $11,000. And then if we go below 10,561, well, then we're falling back down into this region where you could see the next support really doesn't come until about that $9,300 level. Now, looking at the bullish side, if we do break out of this blue zone and we get into this green zone, if we get above that $12,700 level, then that's sort of a good place I would want to see Bitcoin sort of hanging out, right? And the next thing we need to do is get above this right here, which I kind of put it at the top of the wick around 13,180. But the reason that I say that we need to do this is because if we keep putting in these lower highs, right? We had our high right here, then we put in a lower high, then we put in a lower high, and even just recently we put in another lower high. So if we continue to go downwards, well, this is still showing a lot of bearish pressure, right? A lot of selling pressure on Bitcoin. So I really would like to see us put in some kind of a high that gets above this for starters, and then obviously getting above this level would be great. So those are the key levels that we're looking at, right? But here is the one level, and you could see none your business. He mentioned this. He says every sat that can be stacked and hodled below $14,000 is a gift. Once Bitcoin has a monthly close above 14,000, there's a good chance it never looks back. And you can see down here, he says, also note, once Bitcoin has closed to the previous monthly closing all-time high, there has been no substantial pullback, okay? And you might be asking, why is he using this level? Didn't Bitcoin go up to 20K, right? Well, he's actually using this based on the monthly closes. So let me just show you really quick to give you a better example of what he's talking about. So, we could see right here, we had this massive wick where Bitcoin obviously came all the way up to just shy of 20K, right? But we didn't stay there very long, right? In fact, Bitcoin barely stayed up in those levels. We pulled back very quickly. So if you look at the monthly candles, you can actually see that we closed this green monthly candle at about 13,878. So it looks like he's just rounding up to 14,000, right? Well, if we draw a line right here, interestingly enough, when we had the wick right here, when Bitcoin put in that, high that we had this year, well, look at where we got stomped out. Well, this wick ended exactly where this month closed out. Let me actually make this a little easier for you to see. And if I just totally get rid of the wicks, just get rid of them so they're not even there, right? Now having a look at the chart, this puts things into a lot more perspective. You can see where Bitcoin actually closed at the end of the month. So basically what he's saying is if we can have a solid candle, come up to this level and close somewhere above roughly the $14,000 level, then if we look back at history, not saying that it's going to repeat itself, but it often rhymes, there is a very, very, very good chance that we will not see Bitcoin below $14,000 ever again, or maybe not until the next bear trend, which could be in 2-3 years from now, right? But odds are we may never see it again. So that's what I wanted to point out. So if you watched yesterday's video in conjunction with what we were talking about with the Mayer multiple, the Bitcoin difficulty ribbon, and now looking at this, on top of the fact that we might be putting in this handle, this could all be, signifying that Bitcoin could be looking for some higher highs. Now, I'm not saying that we can't go lower. We could definitely go lower. There's definitely plenty of room, right? We're still in this gigantic wedge, but just saying, if we do close above this, it's more around 13,878. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the mark, guys. So like I said, when's a good time to accumulate Bitcoin? Well, I mean, yes, you could wait for it to go a lot lower, but realistically speaking, I think that time is running out. And I want to talk about something else real quick that a lot of people are saying could be very positive, which is the GTI VERA convergence divergence indicator. Now, this is over from Bloomberg. You have Mike McGlone saying that Bitcoin is showing its prowess as a digital store of value and hedge against global economic uncertainty. He says Bitcoin should remain a primary beneficiary of growing demand for its store of value, quasi-currency asset properties, and he says it's similar to gold. Now, stick with me because I want to show you something pretty incredible with the gold chart. In fact, I have a special guest coming on later tonight. We have actually a second episode coming out, so make sure you put the bell notification on. You're not going to want to miss that one. We're going to talk about it, but favorably, he says macroeconomic fundamentals, plunging bond yields, and risking stock market volatility appear to have endurance and should further differentiate Bitcoin from other crypto assets. You also have Akbar Tabani, the CEO of crypto prime dealer SFox, which we talk about a lot on the channel. I like to read their reports. He says Bitcoin appears to be solidifying its status as a safe haven asset. Bitcoin seems to uniquely enjoy a status as a store of value, similar to gold, which may explain why it's building positive momentum amid the 10% tariff announcements. Now, also adding in on this discussion about Bitcoin versus gold, you have Dan McArdle. He's the co-founder of analytics over at Masari. You might be familiar with on-chain FX, right? He says that Bitcoin could copy gold's behavior. In fact, it kind of already has been. But he's specifically mentioning Bitcoin to repeat what gold did after the 2008 financial crisis. Obviously, this is what birthed Bitcoin, right? This is what created that incentive for Satoshi Nakamoto to create it. I mean, if you look at the Genesis block, right, we have that hidden message in it. He says, I would not be surprised if Bitcoin performs like gold did from 2008 to 2011. Initial spikes on fear of crisis, big falls as liquidity crisis actually sets in, followed by an even bigger rise as debt, sovereign currency fears take hold. Now, essentially, this is the gold chart right here. And, he's talking about this area from 2008 pretty much to the end of, 2011. And I think that the area, if we were to be mimicking the gold chart, I say that we are down here somewhere because you could see Bitcoin, we had a 35% pullback, right? We literally just had it from the 14K level down to the low that we put in. And over here, you could see gold did something very similar in March 31st, where it went from about $1,030 all the way down to about $679, putting in a 35% pullback. So that's pretty much exactly mimicking what already happened with Bitcoin. And then you could see from that point on, once it hit the low, gold then rose all the way up to $1,920, which is a 180% increase, and that took gold about 1,029 days. Now, keep in mind, Bitcoin moves a lot faster than gold. In fact, when you compare the Bitcoin chart to the gold chart, you'll find that even though it does seem to replicate some of these fractals, we tend to do it a lot faster, and we tend to do it a lot more aggressively than we do on this. So if you're seeing gold going up 180%, it wouldn't be out of the cards to see Bitcoin put in something closer to 250 to 300% and do it a lot faster, right? So that is basically the level that I wanted to talk about, which would be if we were to get above that $14,000 level, there might be no turning back. And some people are calling for 17,000 by the end of this month, right? So yeah, there could be some turmoil. We might go down lower, but just keep in mind that the time to accumulate Bitcoin at these levels is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So not financial advice, but just make sure that you're not sitting on the sidelines just waiting for that perfect price. Because what if it doesn't come, right? It could, but what if it doesn't? That's just what I'm trying to say. Obviously, don't do anything on this channel because I said it. Always make your own decisions. But you could see more and more figures continue to grow on record to say a shift in Bitcoin for investors looking for a hedge against inflation is happening. It's happening retail. It's happening institutional. It's happening with countries that are having hyperinflation. It's being seen as a hedge. For example, you could see, the Chinese yuan in particular. Obviously, we saw what happened the other day. Also, Circle CEO Jeremy Allaire, we've spoken about him. He pretty much agrees on this situation as well. And you can see right here, once again, Venezuela has put in yet another all-time high OTC for Bitcoin trading. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, yeah, but the Bolivar, look at it. I mean, it's losing value, faster than, okay, I get it. Yes, this is due to the fact that they're having hyperinflation, but you can't just look at one piece of the pie without looking at the other piece of the pie. I mean, you got to consider the fact that not only is Bitcoin's value and its price actually rising, but you have to look at the fact that these fiat currencies are also losing value and failing in the background. So it's kind of those two variables that's really a reason why I'm very bullish on Bitcoin long term. You also have Chris Reinstein, Chief Market Officer of blockchain consultancy Rhythm Technologies. He says that investors are pouring their money into Bitcoin as a safe haven asset. He says there's a flight of capital to all these types of assets across the board, which would include gold. But now we are seeing Bitcoin included without, people aren't even hesitating now. They're saying, yeah, Bitcoin, it's a hedge, right? He says throughout the last few years, we've seen a trend of Bitcoin increasingly becoming fundamentally correlated to more macro moves as increased economic uncertainty in the world increases. And guys, like I said, I mean, we have been literally following this stock to flow chart. Shout out to Plan B. And we are still on track for a $100 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. And if you don't believe me, I mean, just look at the chart. Numbers don't lie. You can have an opinion. You can feel a certain way about something. But when you look at the chart doesn't lie. And this thing is showing me that we are set for a $100 trillion market cap, potentially by 2028. That's not that far away. I mean, we're talking 8 years. 9 years, you know how long people have been waiting to get these, I mean, not even returns like this, just to get like 300%, 400%, right? In the S&P, you're talking almost, a decade and a half over here. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. And if that's not bullish enough for you, how about the fact that if we look at base money global supply, Bitcoin comes in at number 11. Yes, number 11, guys. The only thing ahead of Bitcoin is Russia, India, Switzerland, the UK, silver, the US, Eurozone nations, China, Japan, and gold. Everything else falls behind Bitcoin. That is incredible, guys. Like, who would have thought we'd be sitting here having a conversation and Bitcoin is number 11? That is incredible to me, guys. There's no denying that. And if you want to look at it on the flip side, which I like to do, because sometimes I like to look at the dollar compared to Bitcoin rather than Bitcoin compared to the dollar, right? And you can see right here, just looking at sats, $1, and obviously this is fluctuating as I'm speaking, but at the time of this that was made yesterday, $1 was worth about 9,490 sats. To put that into perspective, 8 years ago, $1 could get you 8.3 million sats. So if that doesn't show you the depreciation of the dollar, well, I don't know what else to tell you guys. That's pretty much that moving forward. All right. Sounds good. We've talked about Bitcoin. Let's talk about some cryptos and let's get on out of here. So also talking about some fundamentals, the number of verified publishers on the Brave Rewards program, for Brave browser has reportedly gone up by more. It's interesting. It says 900% here, but it says 1,500% here. I don't know which one to believe, but it's gone up nevertheless. You can see right here, last year they had about 12,900 YouTube channels. Today they have around 157,000 YouTube channels, just under 1,000 Twitch channels. Now they have over 12,000 and 5,000 websites verified, whereas now we're up to $28,100. So congratulations for Brave and Basic Attention Token. If you guys haven't checked it out, I do have a link below. I am a verified publisher, but a lot of people are complaining about this KYC they've put in, but what are you going to do? I mean, they're just trying to play by the rules here. Listen, nobody loves being in the US right now and dealing with all this. Trust me, I'm from New York. I know, but that's the situation. So also, we have some news from VeChain. So basically, Penfolds, one of Australia's oldest and most iconic wineries, is now the first of its kind on VeChain's wine traceability platform. So you can see local reports show that the counterfeit Penfolds accounted for over $1 million in counterfeit sales in 2017, 2.8 million from what is this, Zhangzhou, I guess it's called. So yeah, you could see that their platform tracks the entire life cycle of the wine. You know how this goes, right? So basically they use NFC tags, and according to the announcement, Penfolds Bin 407 bottles are now available in 3 locations, tagged and powered by VeChain Thor. So there you go. Pretty good news for VeChain. Also, we were just talking about this yesterday with Coinbase. It looks like now they must face a negligence lawsuit from customers who bought Bitcoin Cash. I thought that they took care of this. Looks like there's still some little bit of laggards here. So for starters, the fact that Coinbase halted trading within 3 minutes of the launch, yeah, that was pretty crazy. When Bitcoin Cash went up to $9,000, and then they were like, oh yeah, guys, we're just going to stop trading. Okay. Nevertheless, Coinbase will need to prove it applied a standard of reasonable care to prevent foreseeable harm to users. So looks like we're not out of the waters yet with that. But one thing I wanted to talk about, this was a tweet from Dovey Wan, and I started thinking about these altcoins versus Bitcoin, right? And she says right here, the founder and CEO of Zilliqa left the project and started a new one, and the chief scientist at Thunder Protocol left ahead of her planned commitment. I assume she's talking about Elaine Shi. Now, I don't know that the founder of Zilliqa left. I thought the CEO just stepped down and he's part of the advisory board. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. I don't think he left. Maybe he did. But essentially, you know, the point she's trying to make is the key difference here with Bitcoin is no one paid Satoshi to build Bitcoin, while ICO coins are tightly knitted with the team as they're mostly interests are aligned and they do have some skin in the game. So basically, long story short, where I wanted to end today was, as much as I do love to speculate on altcoins, and I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, I do own altcoins, okay? I just own primarily Bitcoin. But the thing is you have to be careful with these projects, You do see sometimes team members leave, things get abandoned, right? We've done interviews on this channel with projects that they were not scams, but unfortunately they just ran out of funds or mismanaged it or just couldn't get their business off the ground, right? So this is why you have to be very, very careful when investing in these altcoins. Not financial advice, but try to keep it to a smaller portion, especially the riskier ones of your portfolio. And I always say try to hold at least just one Bitcoin on this channel. I know it can be difficult, okay? I understand, but just think about it. It's going to be harder and harder and harder to own one Bitcoin moving forward, especially if it gets to some of these levels that we're looking at on these charts. So that being said, before we go, I wanted to show you this. I found this online. Somebody had a screenshot of a super, really old Bitcoin wallet. Look at this. Here's the address. And it's just like a simple in and out. And my goodness, 15 Bitcoin. Wow, must have been a baller. Although back in the day, 15 Bitcoin really wasn't that much. So, hindsight is 2020. So, yeah. People thought Bitcoin could never go to 1,000. People thought Bitcoin could never go to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. So yeah, definitely Bitcoin is one of those things that tends to surprise us time after time again, in a very good way usually. And that being said, I want to say thank you so much again for everyone who came back to the channel. You guys are freaking awesome. Everyone that's been liking, subscribing, and commenting, turning on the bell notification, you guys rock. Also, don't forget, comment on any video throughout the course of the week, and you are eligible for the Ledger Nano S giveaway on Monday. And once again, thank you again for everyone that's been supporting the channel by using my referral links below, whether it's signing up for Bybit,